Hey guys! I hope that you guys are doing amazing wherever you are in the world. My name, as always, is Boom Shaka, and I welcome you to my channel. I'm so grateful that you guys are spending time with me on this channel, subscribing, commenting, and putting your energy here. I really appreciate all of that. In this video, I want to speak to you guys about ceremonies and rituals. I've been thinking a lot about this specific topic over the last few weeks because I've been noticing that there has been an influx of a lot of different kind of rituals into my life, as if the universe is trying to poke me on the shoulder or tap me on the shoulder and say, here, this is something that you should be doing that you're not doing, okay? And so I want to give you a little bit of a background on, as humanity or as people, what we are doing and our history with regards to ceremonies and rituals. So obviously when we were pagans, or we believed in animal spirits, or when we were like Native Americans, where we had this idea that the world around us is alive. The trees are alive, the rocks are alive, the sun is alive, and we prayed to things like that. So we weren't really praying to deities or Jesus Christ or things like that. We were actually praying to the environment around us, nature, the sun, the moon, and all of those things. At that point, there were a lot of rituals and ceremonies that we followed in order to give homage to pay homage to the beings around us, right? To the sun, to the moon, to the trees, to the lakes, to the rivers, to everything around us that sustained us. That was life-giving, right? The rivers around us were not just sources of water, or they weren't just sources of dumping. It wasn't just about dumping garbage into it. It was about giving water. If you did not have that river at that point in time, you would not be able to drink water. They didn't have water bottles, they didn't have Nestle, they didn't have like plastic bottles that they could buy from the supermarket and they could drink water that way. They had to get their water from the river sources, the rivers, the lakes, etc. And so they were all life-giving. The same thing with the trees and the plants and the herbs and the spices and everything around them. That's how they got their food. It wasn't that, they just kind of went to the supermarket and bought their food. It was that their food was achieved by cutting down a tree or going to a shrub and getting some berries or digging into the soil and getting some root vegetables, things like that, right? Of course, that meant that there was a lot of connection, a deep connection between the humanity or the human beings and these sources of life around them. So it wasn't just that they were disconnected from all of it. It wasn't just that it was just a tree. It was that they would be able to get their housing from it. Their leaves were used for things, their barks were used for things, their sap was used for things. And so everything around them had a specific use, had a specific item that they could get from it that helped them live their life, right? And so birch water, they drank water from the birch, and that's how they got a lot of their nutrients. The herbs and spices, they needed that in order to cure ailments. It wasn't that they just popped a pill. They needed the herbs and spices that came from the trees and plants around them in order to make them feel better, in order to cure illnesses, in order to be healthy, right? So everything around them had a purpose, had a meaning, a much deeper meaning than what we have right now, right? Right now we might pass by a tree and it's just a tree. It's there, it provides a little bit of shade, and it maybe provides a little bit of oxygen if you think about that, but that's it. You're not thinking about anything else with regards to that tree, it's just a tree. Same thing with a plant that you might pass by. And so I've obviously been trying really hard to learn more about plants, and there is this one particular plant that I passed by. It's the butterfly pea flower, and it's this beautiful little purple flower, and it's really good for you. It helps with depression and anxiety and mood swings and a host of other benefits. And so they're very popular here. They're everywhere. They just grow on the side of the streets. And so whenever I pass by, I thank the tree, I thank the plant, and I'll pick a couple of flowers and I'll just munch on it while I'm walking around. And it's one of those things that I've started doing that I never used to do before. I would never think about picking a flower and eating it, but because I know more about it, I'm able to do that. And that's how our ancestors used to live. It wasn't that they were disconnected from their world, it's that they were extremely connected to everything that was going on around them. They were really connected to everything, the rivers, the lakes, the oceans, the trees, the plants, the animals. It wasn't just that animals were there around them because they were a nuisance or they were a source of food. It was that they were a source of life. And that's the difference. It was, if they didn't have all of these things around them, they would not be alive anymore. If they didn't have the river, if the river was dry one year because there was no rain, they would die. There was no plan B there. There was no plan that you could just go to the supermarket and buy anything, or there was no governments that would be like, all right, cool, we're going to transport water from here to there so you can have water. There wasn't anything like that. And so, of course, as I said, this caused them to have a lot of rituals and ceremonies in order to connect themselves further with these life sources, but also to thank them, right? Because it wasn't just that, okay, I'm just going to keep on taking and taking and taking from my environment. It was that I have to return back to my environment as well. I have to thank her, him, it, for what it has done for me, what it has given me, right? And so they have all these rituals. And in my culture, I'm originally from India, there's a lot of rituals still. There's a lot of rituals still that are performed with regards to water, with regards to the rivers around us. We consider our rivers to be holy and life-giving sources. Without the rivers, a lot of India would be dead because there would be no other source of water for them, and the governments are not that great at their infrastructure. So unfortunately or fortunately, they have a lot of rituals still with regards to water. And I've noticed that they're very careful and they try as much as possible to be careful about their water sources. I remember being in India maybe 8 or 9 years ago, and I was right next to the Ganga, which is our very holy river. It's one of the longest rivers, and it is extremely holy because it comes down from the Himalayas, from the gods basically, right? And so it's treated preciously. It's treated like a deity. It is a goddess. Our rivers are goddesses to us, right? And so there was this person, this Indian man, who went in, and they take showers and they take baths in the rivers. They're not very clean anymore, unfortunately, but they do still use them as a source of water, as a source of, cleaning and water to make food, etc. Not healthy, but still that's the way it is. And this man went in and he started using soap to clean himself in the water. And there was this priest that came out of nowhere and yelled at him so hard and started beating him up because he was polluting the goddess. He was polluting Ganga River by using soap. It's not allowed anymore. I mean, of course, there's industries that dump that sewage into the river. And so I don't want to talk about all the logistics of it, but there was this one scene that I noticed where this person was basically beaten up for polluting the river, polluting the goddess that is Ganga River, right? And so there is this deep connection that's still present, obviously, among those people, but that we, as modern, civilized, I guess, human beings in the developed countries have lost. We don't have those rituals anymore. We don't have any ceremonies that we follow. We don't do any of that stuff. We're not related or connected to anything. And I think that's one of the reasons why we feel so alone in this technology-filled world. It's not because of the technology necessarily. It's because we've lost all of that connection to the source. We've lost the connection to our water, to our food, to the trees and the plants and the beings around us. We don't consider even rocks to be anything anymore. We just break them down. We use explosives and we mine through them. And so nothing holds any value to us anymore except money, right? We don't have any connection to anything except money. And so we're feeling isolated because of that. Whereas our ancestors, were connected to everything. Everything had life. The rocks around them had life. The earth around them had life. Every insect, bug, everything had life around them. Trees, plants, rivers, mountains, sun, moon, all the planets, all the constellations, every single thing around them had meaning to them, had some source of life to them, had a deity around connected to them, or had a goddess or god connected to them. There was always this connection to everything. And because of that, they were never alone, because they could be walking by themselves in the middle of nowhere in the desert and they would still feel connected to the source, because there's a sun right there, or there's a sand there which also has life. There's the cactus there which has life. There's the shrubs and the bushes there which has life. There's the snakes who are goddesses and gods as well. There are the bugs that are filled with life. They were always surrounded by life. They were always surrounded by gods, goddesses, deities, and powerful beings like that. They were never alone. Whereas now, in our concrete jungles, we are extremely alone, right? We have nothing that connects us to the source. And so I'm going to obviously talk a lot more about this in the future, because I'm obviously learning about it. But of course, the main idea or tenet behind this video is that we need to learn a little bit from our ancestors, and learn that we need to try at least to see this life everywhere around us. Again, it's harder in a concrete jungle, because you're looking at the asphalt and you're like, does it have life? I don't know about that. But if you have any trees around you, or any plants around you, when you're walking past a beautiful tree, remember that it is a source of life. It's a source of oxygen. If you didn't have that, you would die, right? And so try as much as possible to notice this life, these sources of life, these gods, goddesses, deities around you as you walk through the world, right? And in a future video, I'll speak a lot more about rituals and ceremonies, and how you can try to bring interesting rituals into your life that connect you to the source over and over again, rather than you feeling alone because you're by yourself on this planet, which you're not. You're always surrounded by your guardian angels, you're surrounded by spirits and beings, and there's always something around you. You're never alone, although we feel, or we've kind of learned, or we think that we're alone, but we're not. Okay? All right, I hope this makes sense. I hope that I was able to explain myself to you. It's so important. I think this lesson is so important to learn, because we are not alone, and we don't have to feel lonely, because we're always surrounded by beautiful, powerful beings. They're there just to help us and to protect us and take care of us. If you guys have any questions about this video or any other video at all, please message me by emailing me. I'll only take questions by email. My email address is in the description below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.